Hi, this is Kevin Miller from Solve3D. Today, I wanted to go over a little bit of onboarding around how to use the Engine Cloud projects, how to interact with them, how to log in, etc. So this might be a two-part series. The first part being what is described as a view-only user experience. So as a view-only user, you may have received a link like you see here on the screen. Maybe you got this via email from one of your colleagues or from somebody else that wanted to share data with you, or over Teams or something, somebody sent you a message. But regardless, this link is a view-only link that can link you directly into the project. So if we copy this, open our web browser of choice, and paste the link and go to it, Engine is going to load up. You see here in my case, this link has our test site in it. I'm just using the test site for this video, but your link, depending if you have Engine installed on premise or Engine is depending where it is, or if it's on our production site, it might be slightly different. So just keep that in mind. But same idea applies here. So I've clicked on that link. I've loaded the project, and it's going to immediately show up just as the user who created the project wanted you to see it. So if they chose to turn on certain layers, point clouds or panoramics or whatever we see here, and that's what they wanted you to see, that's how the link is going to show up. So what can you do? Well, right away, you can start navigating around the project. So we have our main scene view here is this big window in the right hand side, the 3D view with the panels and point clouds. We also have a aerial view in the bottom left. And you can always swap those views if you want. So there's a little arrow here. I can click this and dive in here and use my mouse wheel and dive in to look at certain things. And you see here we have some a DXF file layer or shapefile layer of the some of the vector line work in this case, and we have all of these white dots that represent camera locations. So at any point I can click on one of these dots and jump my cameras there. You see in the bottom left it moved around. Here I'll do another one just to show you what's going on. So you see there. And then you also notice there's this kind of green triangle showing my field of view that I'm looking at in here. So as I turn around in this view, you can see that green triangle is moving around. Oops, I clicked on another camera there. So yeah, so you can always jump between those views, like I said, with this little arrow. Or in this view, you can, kind of like Google Street View, you can just navigate down the road by clicking these little arrows in the direction of choice, depending where the collection of cameras was located. So, jump to the other lane, whatever it might be. So that's kind of basic navigation. I mean, there's a compass here to help you figure out which direction you're looking as well. I'll get more into the compass in a little bit here, but some other things, if you don't like the current visibility, or maybe you're having trouble looking at something because there's just point clouds in the way or whatever, you see our point cloud is colorized right now. You can always go into the top right where there's settings, the settings cog icon. And here, let me just maximize this here. In the settings icon or settings section, you have a whole bunch of different project settings. So I'll go over all of those. So we have things like point cloud visibility. We're at 44% opacity. I can turn it down and just look at the panoramics. In this case, these panoramics are a little dark, but that's okay. Or I can crank it all the way up and view point clouds over top there. I have things like different color types. So with the point clouds, if I turn them all the way up, I can change. I'm viewing point cloud by color because it has RGB information, but maybe I want to view it by intensity with a grayscale intensity, or height map with more of a rainbow color theme. So it's up to you. People have their own preferences. Maybe they don't want to see it at all, so they can turn it off, like I said. I usually like turning it down a little bit just so I can see what's going on, and I know the point cloud's still there. Helps. This navigation mode for arrows is what you see here. We have these arrows to navigate, but if you want, you can switch to markers, and that shows little circles everywhere that has a camera location. So you can see here, truck drove up here and collected data on this side of the road, and then it looks like it drove down this side of the road twice. So that's why you have two different camera pictures there, slightly different times. So you can use that if you like that. What else do we have? We have max visible points. So this is something like, by default, engine is going to try to stream in as much points as possible. And actually, in this case, it's in this current point of view, it's going to stream in 10 million points. So what that means is as I navigate down the road, and let's go quite far here. Let's jump to the other end of the project here. You're going to see, if you watch quickly there, all the points started streaming in. So it's unloading some of those points from back in that intersection we were at, and it's loading in some new points here. Max points distance is exactly that. Show only points that are 20 meters away from me. Things like that. I like cranking it up, but maybe if you're in an indoor environment, you might want to turn it down. Height range is how the color is applied to the point cloud. So I can, adjust this value, kind of the min and max value here, to get something that I like depending on my color scheme. Any of these sliders at any point, you can always click this drop down and change the value manually if you can't fine tune it with the slider. So feel free to type in 50%, hit enter, and it'll save it there. So that's an option. And then, you have circular points, or let's just turn this up. See, they're all circles right now, but I can turn them to squares. Everyone has their preference. So feel free to get something that you like and play with it. Point scale is point cloud sizing. So you can kind of, adjust things accordingly. Maybe like less points mashed together. Minimum point size is for clusters of points. So when you're doing adaptive point sizing, it makes sure that points are at least a certain point size, and adaptive point sizing just makes them all sort of look uniform. If you turn them off, it might show sparser or larger points depending on, smaller or larger points depending on the density of the point cloud in certain areas. Tag distance is similar to the point cloud distance. That's these little red tags, which I'll talk about in a bit. But those tags, you can filter out how much are shown. If you don't want to see them, or if they're in their way or something, you can turn them down or turn them off even. And then we have classifications. If your point cloud is classified, so mine is, if I can even view by classifications, turn those up, you can see I have these trees as never classified, so unclassified, and then I have the ground as ground. So I can turn off certain sections of the point cloud and only look at the ground if I want, or vice versa. Obviously, if you had more classifications in your point cloud, like vegetation and buildings and whatever else, you could toggle those individually on and off as well. So it's quite flexible there. These names of classifications come from the ASPRS specification for LAS files. So if you may, depending on your classifications, if you use some of the common names like ground and you use class 2 for something else, it's going to show up as ground here. So just keep that in mind. So that's the project settings. So I'm just going to switch back. Actually, I'll talk a little bit about these bookmarks. So as a administrator who created this project, they may have defined some bookmarks. So what bookmarks are, if I click on one, you're going to see it's going to jump me to where that bookmark was defined. So somebody has gone through and said, I want these specific point cloud settings, these layers turned on and off, this perspective, this camera that I'm looking at, and they saved it as a bookmark called intersection. I can click on intersection, or I can click aerial, and it'll jump to that, whatever that bookmark was. In this case, they were looking at the aerial map, but it saves and applies those settings as I move around. As a view-only user, you cannot create your own bookmarks. View-only other types of users can. So as a view-only user, you can just use the existing bookmarks in the system and navigate around. You can also see, depending where the bookmark was defined, you can see a little floating tag. This, see, it says Arial here, in your scene view. That lets you, if you click this, it'll jump to the bookmark as well. So it lets you kind of see an overview of where all the bookmarks might be mentioned. So that's something you can use as well. And you can always turn off those if you don't want to see them in the view. You can just turn them off, and you can still use them. It just doesn't show the label in the view. So alternatively, too, under the Manage tab at the top here, you have all of the layers that were added to the project as defined by the person who created this project. So they may have created multiple folders of layers and maybe had different floors of a building, and it's all sectioned like that. And you might see it slightly organized in a slightly different way. But you can always choose to turn it on and off layers if you just don't want to see them. Maybe we want to see images, but we don't want to see this this layer file, or the shape, or DXF file in this case, or we want to turn the tags right off. So yeah, so you can also navigate through the tags like that. You can export the CSV if you want to download that. Yeah, there's a few options there for managing the other data. Most of the time, if somebody has defined bookmarks, you just probably stay in the bookmarks tab. You can also choose to collapse this whole tab if you just want a full screen view, and it puts the little aerial view in your window there. And also at any point, especially if you have point cloud data, you can right click and enable 3D mode. So what that does is, if I turn that on, and maybe let me turn up my point cloud visibility a bit, it basically removes that panoramic photo, and now I'm just floating around in the point cloud. So I can now use my right mouse button and drag away from the world, and my mouse wheel, I'm scrolling it down now to zoom out. I can now navigate that data in this perspective, and I can see those tags. Somebody could even have created a bookmark like this with an overview, and see the overview from a top-down perspective of all the data. So inside 3D mode, there's a few, besides just moving around like this, you can always click on one of these cameras to jump back to it, but you can also hit your space bar, and you'll see it says walk mode enabled, and now I can use, just like a video game, I can use my WSAD keys and kind of fly around. I can use my minus button to slow down a bit, and then fly around and kind of fly through the world like this, or go down to the street level here and drive down the road and look at my data this way. So yeah, and then you just hit spacebar to end that walk mode again. And then again, if I turned on, say, my DXF layer and went back into that walk mode and went down to the street, you'll be able to see that line work as well. So that's the sort of basic navigation. What things can you do in this view? So let's go to bookmarks. Let's go back to our intersection. So as defined by the person, the administrator creating this project, they may have created some tags. And these tags are represented by this all these red dots. And they could have placed them wherever they want. They're attached to the point cloud. So as a user, a view-only user, I can click on one and look at it and see if it had any custom title information. This one's pretty generic, but maybe they had some special comments. Maybe they had a link out to another system. You could click that link and jump out. So quite a lot of different things you could do with the tags. View-only mode is purely just view-only. I can just look at them and kind of see. In this case, maybe the stop sign was damaged, so somebody wrote that it was fixed. Yeah, so these are all pretty generic ones for a demo. So that's the tags. You can also do measurements. So in the top right, there's a measurements icon. I can click that, and up pops open this measurements window, which I can drag around and move around if it's in my view. By default, it's going to show you the units at the bottom here in the projection that this project in. And in this case, this project is in Alberta, Canada. It's using a metric system, so that's why we have meters for units. So if you want to switch to feet or survey feet, you can do that. We'll just leave it on metric for now. So you can do standard measurements. So things like if you just wanted to measure, I don't know, the width of this road, let's turn here. You can click one point and then drag it over and click the other point. Double click to finish, and you'll see that it's got my measurement, 12.06 meter. Well, sorry, let me do this again. I did not double click when I should have. There we go. So 12.16 meters, and you can see it also shows it here, and it shows you the vertices. I can add, or I can rename this. So by default, I just gave it a generic name, but I could call this road or something, road width. And I got the measurement. I can delete it. I can do another measurement if I want. So you could have multiples here. Just here's the new one with the 5.35. I can, those will appear in 3D mode. I can do single point type measurements. So like if I wanted to know, I don't know where this tree is located, I just click on the tree. I got the vertices or vertex here. I can just copy it, and I got that positioned in the coordinate system that was defined by the project. I got snap up and down measurements. So say like the one just works opposite of the other. So say snap down, I can click on this power line and it snaps down to the ground below it. So I got 7.18 meters. My favorite measurement is this height measurement, where I can click on things like, say, this power line, and then click anywhere I want on the ground. So say I want to know the height, the clearance, maybe I'm moving a big truck down here, I want to know the clearance. I can now see that, I got 10.8 meters here up to this top power line, but maybe I want to drag it down to here and go, okay, in this particular location, I got 6.8 meters. So, and I can move these vertices at any point in time. So if I make a mistake or whatever, I can quickly move those. You got area measurements. That's very similar. Let's see, let's move over here. I'll do I can't do that. Let's go here to the area of this like little platform down here or something. Maybe I have to repave it or redo the thing. So you can see here, I got a total area of about 3.2 meters squared there, and I can just drag this around or whatever, and if I need to adjust it, and all the individual segments on the thing, I got it there. And volume measurements are very similar. This is not the best data set for volume, but I could do, say, a volume of a pile, or the cut of a hole in the ground. So quite a few different functionalities there, but at any point you can choose to export these measurements. So I can export them. They export as a CSV file or a proprietary kind of JSON file if you want to re-import them later, but export them as a CSV. It just downloads it. I can just open it here in Excel, and you can see all of the different measurements and the vertices, so it'll mash them all together. You can also do measurements in the aerial view. So if I switch to aerial view, you can't do all of the same measurements. Obviously, like volume doesn't make sense in aerial view, but yeah, you can do measurements here, similar. Yeah, you can't do a single point. Snap up and down won't work. Area should work here, so I can do an area of a city block or something. And again, you can export those as well. So that's measurements. While I'm kind of in the scene view, you can also do things like right click and start an elevation profile. So at any point, say if we want to see the elevation of this road, I can say click on this sidewalk over here, and now this thing is following my mouse around, and you can see it starts highlighting different points. But say we right click again over on this side of the road and end our elevation profile, and then let me just make this a little bigger so hopefully we can see it, and we'll go all points. You can see if I use my mouse wheel to zoom in, I can see that crest of the road and the curb edges, and it went down and then it went up in the middle of the road and down again. So I can look at my elevation that way. Maybe you crossed a whole bunch of power lines or something, so you could choose to say show me only the lowest points or the highest points. Zoom back in. You can also refresh this depending on your current view, reset the chart, or save this to an image if you wanted to export it. So that's a good option there. I think that's it in basic kind of view only functionality. As users add things to the project, like more users with more permissions, you can start to do more things. But as a general kind of view only mode, that covers most of the functionality there. Again, if you have any questions first check out our support portal at solve.com/support. You can sign up for an account there. There's lots of good videos and documentation on how to use the product. Otherwise, feel free to reach out using our support portal. There's a contact form and you can send us an email and we'll get back to you right away. Thank you very much.